Hilchas Zchiah Perik Sheni. Nichse ger she'en liyorshim, v'nichse ahefker, or v'soda shemochra agoy li-Yisrael, v'adayin lehirzik bo. The Yisrael that's buying the field didn't make a chazaka, and the guy relinquished his rights to the field because he already got the money. And on the other end, the Yid didn't yet make a chazaka, he didn't get a star, so therefore the karka is not yet his. So we learned before that someone else could come along and make a chazaka. So kulam dinam shava, which is kol hamachzik b'hem b'derech midarkei chazaka, k'mei shebiyarnu b'hilchos mechira kana. So if a person makes a chazaka on nichse hefker, nichse ager, or in the chosim that someone that the guy already relinquished his rights and the yid didn't make a kinyan in it. So if he makes a ma'aseh chazaka, and which chazaka? The same chazaka that would work by mechira. So when a person buys a piece of karka, so we learned that you could be koined with chazaka, and we learned what chazaka is. So all of these chazakas are koined. Chut, and there's all any ma'aseh that would be considered a chazaka, no al god or parats. This is all would be considered a chazaka. Chutz. Machilas haperes. The shittas Rambam is that when you buy a field and you make a ma'aseh kinyan, and the ma'aseh kinyan is that you eat the peres, that's considered a ma'aseh kinyan in a field. So the Rambam is saying that this din that achilas peres is a kinyan in a field, that's only by mechira, because by mechira, since the person owns the field, be'etzim you have no right to eat from the peres. So mele, by you eating the peres from the field, you're showing bailus. You're showing bailus in the field. The fact that you're eating peres in the field. I'll call upon him, that's the shittas Rambam. Masha'enkin, if you go into a field of hefker and you eat the peiros of the field, that's not showing bailus. In other words, because you're allowed to eat the peiros and you're allowed to be kind of the field, but the fact that you're eating the peiros of the field is not really a sign of bailus. So therefore, that's not considered a ma'aseh kinyan. Ketzat halikeach karka mechaver. A person buys karka from his friend, v'hirzik bo b'achilas peirisah, and he does a ma'aseh kinyan. What's the ma'aseh kinyan? That he eats the peiros of the karka is kana, k'mesha b'yarnu. Avol b'nichse hefker and nichse ager. When a person wants to make a ma'aseh chazaka on hefker and nichse ager, afilo achel peiros ilan kamashanim is lekana gufa ilan v'le gufa karka. He's not koina the karka, not koina because it's not really showing bailus. And those he's eating the peiros because the peiros are hefker. Memeli he can eat the peiros. Memeli lekana gufa ilan v'le gufa karka ache yasa ma'aseh begufa oretz eyavid aveda b'ilan. He has to do something in the actual karka or do something in the actual ilan. Only then would it be a ma'aseh chazaka. Ma'aseh b'isha acha she'achla peiros dekel shleishas ishana. She ate it for 13 years. He did something in the gufa ilan. He did a ma'aseh chazaka. He did a ma'aseh tikkun in the ilan itself. That the second one was Cana and the first one wasn't Cana. So the nekudas advarim is that hefker, karka of hefker, you could be Cana with chazaka. And what's chazaka? The same thing that's called chazaka by mechira would be called chazaka to be Cana and a hefker, with the exception that by mechira you could make a kina chazaka by achilas peiros. Masha'enkin, when you're being zeichem and a hefker, you could not make a ma'aseh chazaka by achilas peiros. Now that's been the gear. So we're saying that there's a chazaka that works by mechira and it doesn't work by kenim and a hefker. Halacha gimel yesh dvarim rabim, which is fakert shem hirzik b'malikeach leikon adayin. If the likeach would make such a ma'aseh chazaka, it wouldn't be a kinyan. However, v'im hirzik be'echad men b'nichse ager b'nichse hefker kana. But this same ma'aseh, which for a ma'aseh kinyan, by mechira wouldn't work, but a chazaka, but again, michse ager, nichse hefker is kana. And the yisod advarim is that when you make a chazaka to buy something, so the chazaka has to show bailus. So it has to be something which, if it's not yours, the mecher wouldn't be happy about you doing it. And therefore, when you do something which is showing bailus, so then it's a ma'aseh kinyan. Masha'enkin over here, b'negeya ager, nichse ager, over here the word is when you're enhancing the property. Whereas you're doing something to enhance the property, even though if you would be buying something, it wouldn't be a kinyan. Why? Because enhancing the property is not really the original owner it wouldn't object to it. So if you have, let's say, a house, and then you go in and you make a nice picture in the house, or you enhance the house, so the owner doesn't necessarily object. So the fact that you're doing it is not really a sign of ownership. When you go ahead and do it nichse ager, so that's you're enhancing the house. So that's the ma'aseh kinyan. Masha'enkin, if you're doing it when you get mechira, it has to be something which the owner would normally object. That's the nekudas of the word. Yesh dvarim rabim shem hirzi bem lekech likon adain. However, v'im hirzi bem benichse hager, a benichse hefker, it would be kein ketzad. Hamoitze paltrin gedolim benuyim benichse hager benichse hefker. He has a large palace, and then he goes v'siyad bem siyud echod. He goes ahead and plasters a certain part of the house. A kir bem kir echod, or he makes like a nice design into it. Kigein amma yoyse keneged haPesach, nor something that's visible, it's conspicuous. It's an amma keneged haPesach. He makes over there a nice design. Is kana. Why? Because he's showing, he's enhancing the karka. But by mechira he wouldn't be koined, because lepel, this would be something which not necessarily the moicha would object, and therefore the fact that you're doing it is not a sign of ownership. Now, hatzor tzura b'nichsi ager, you make a certain tzura b'nichsi ager. You create a certain form. You make a picture in the nichsi ager. Is kana, or v'hamatzia matzois b'nichsi ager. You go ahead and like put carpet down in the karka. In nichsi ager, you put matzois down on the karka. B'nichsi ager is also karna, and also hanoras hasoda b'nichsi ager. If a person plows the nichsi ager, so again it's a sign of ownership. Is kana, because you're making the field better. Masha'inkin b'negeh, when you're buying it, again, when you're buying something, making the field better is only in such a thing which normally the owner would object. If something that the owner wouldn't normally object, that wouldn't be considered something which would be a ma'aseh kinyan. Now, b'negeh nor, the ma'aseh, it said really, b'negeh buying also, hanoras hasoda is kana. So the Mefarshim explained that it depends if you're being nor the whole sada, or you're only being nor if you're only plowing part of the sada. But again, nichsager, even if you only plow part of the sada, you also kaina. Masha'en kain, if we're talking about a sada, as we said before, there's mitzarim around it. Masha'en kain b'negeya, buying it, so that would only if you would be plowing the entire field. Now hamafatzel zmoyres hagefen esrige ilonis. You're cutting off twig, you're cutting off vines, or you're cutting off branches of trees, or branches of a palm tree, kapis tamarim, like the lovim, b'nichsi ager. So the question is, why are you doing it? Im daiti lavida, and if you're trying to make something better for the tree, you're taking off the vines that aren't good, like you're pruning the tree. So then it's kana, because as we said, when a person does something to enhance the tree, to enhance the karka, so you're kana b'nichsi ager. However, im daiti lahachla etzim lebehema, the reason why you're cutting off these twigs, or these vines or these branches, is in order to use it for food for an animal, is leikana, because taking peiris is not koina. As we said, taking peiros from the tree is not koina, because it's not a raya that the karka is yours. The peiros are hefker, the karka is hefker, and you want the peiros, so you're not interested in the karka. Masha'inkin, when you use the peiros of someone's karka that belongs to someone else, you say, why are you using the peiros? Look, you have no right to the peiros. So using the peiros is a sign that the karka is yours. Now, Kate said, what would be the case where you'd see whether or not the purpose of cutting these branches is for the tree or for the behemoth? Kate said, you were cutting from both sides. You weren't cutting from one side. You were cutting some vines from one side, the vines from the other side, or the branches from one side, from the other side. You're trying to beautify the tree, so you're taking off all the branches which aren't good. However, you were cutting only from one side, so then you're not trying to help the tree, you're trying to help yourself. You need these twigs, you need these branches for a behemoth. You're gathering wood or grass or rocks from a field. If your purpose of gathering these things in order for the field to be clean is kana. However, the purpose is because you need that wood is leikana. Now, Kate said, how would we know what the purpose is? You took away everything from the field, aside the big pieces, aside the small pieces. Is a reza becheskes so bepashtus, it means you're trying to clean up the field. So then you are koina, because you're trying to enhance the matzav of the field. So you're koina b'nichsi ager. However, liket hagas v'leyadak, you only took the big pieces, not the small pieces. So obviously, because the big pieces you need, the small pieces you don't need. So you're not interested in the field, you're interested in the pieces. Is a reza becheskes shenischav le'etzim. V'chein hamashra pnei oretz, you're making the field straight. is imdaite l'sakanars if your intention is to have a straight field is kana. However, v'imdaite lahashus mokim shiamid begerin. In other words, you just temporarily need something. You want to thresh over there, so b'meila you're putting a gerin over there. So b'meila you want to have a straight piece of land. Is leikana because you're not really interested in the land. You're only interested for your use at that present time. Ketzad. You're taking earth, which is in a high area, and you're putting down in a low area to make things straight, level. Is areze mesakanaris? That means obviously you're trying to level out the ground. You're not being makpid and leveling out the ground. You're just taking off an area which is, there's a mound, and you want to have in that mound, you want to make a threshing floor, and just throwing everything around to another place in order to have your area, your straight area. You're only trying to straighten out an area for your threshing, and you're not interested in the field being a better field. Just right now, you want to thresh. So therefore, you need a clear area. A person opens up a stream of water to come into the field. Is if the purpose that you're putting this water into the field is l'sakan for the field is kana. However, if your purpose is in order to catch fish, that's going to come with the water, and they're going to end up in the field. Is leikana ketzad. How would we know if your purpose is for the field or your purpose is for the fish? If you're just bringing a stream of water and the water is irrigating the field, and just the water is remaining in the field, so then so you want to irrigate the field. However, you made two openings, for the water to come in and then for the water to go out. And what you're interested in is really that in this stream of water there are fish, so you want the water to come into the field, and then the water is going to go out of the field, and there's going to be a place where the fish are going to be blocked. So Memela, the water is going to go out of the field without the fish, and the fish will remain. So your interest is not the field. Your interest is the fish. And B'chiyah Gavna, so you're not kaina the field. When you do something in the field to do for yourself, so then you're not kaina the field. Halacha tes. Habayna paltrin gedoyle b'nichsi ager. A person builds a building b'nichsi ager, big building, a big palace. Ubo acher v'hemed lem dlosses. Lepel, he built a building, but there were no doors. And someone else came and built the doors. So the din is ha'achrein, kono ha'achrein, the other person is kaina, the second person is kaina, the one that built the doors. Why? Shaharishin liyose beguf aretz klum. In other words, the kinyan of nichsi ager is you enhancing the karka. Lepel, when a person builds a building and there are no doors, so that's not really doing anything. Shaharishin liyose beguf aretz klum. V'hareu k'mi she'ose gal avonim al haaretz, as if he would have made a pile of stones on the earth. She'ein kaina. This building without doors doesn't have any function. Since this building is wide and open, and therefore this binyan is not going to do anything until you build the walls. And we learned that in order to be koine b'nichsi ager, it has to be something that you're enhancing the property. And this didn't yet enhance the property until you build the doors. So only the person that put the doors on is koine. Now the question is, l'chure eina chinami, the person that put the doors on could be koine maybe the karka, but how is he koine the building? L'chure, the building belongs to the first person that built the building. So on that, the Rimagash says, that the Rimagash explains that the pshat is that when a person builds the building on a property, and lepel, that building is not really doing anything to the property, so somewhere or another the building becomes bottled to the property. So it's kilu like he was mevatla to the property, and lepel that he doesn't own the property. So mele, when that person starts owning the property, he also owns the building. So not so easy to understand, but l'chura, that's the pshat. The pshat is that this building became bottled to the property, and mele, when the second person comes and he puts doors, so he's kind of inside the building, inside the property. Now, hamefitz hazera l'techat lomim. There's a field, and that field has furrows which you plowed. Now someone comes and puts seeds into those furrows. So l'chure, he's enhancing the property. So the din is leikon. He's not kind of why. Shebe'esh hishlech hazera lehishbiach klum. In other words, when he just threw the seeds, at that point in time, nothing happened. Ube'eshet tzomach v'ishbeach, but at the time of planting, and that's when it is enhancing the property, is shvacha bo me'elef uve'ene kena. He can't be kena with the shvacha bo me'elef. So in order to make a ma'aseh kinyan, by enhancing the property, it has to be such a thing that while you're doing it, it's enhancing the property. When he's throwing the seeds, the property is not being enhanced because the seeds didn't take root yet. And later, when it takes root, it's not happening through him. It's something that he was goyrim earlier. So therefore, it's not considered a ma'aseh kinyan. Now, this same halach is halacha yudalef. Hoysem mechitza b'nichsi ager. There was a mechitza already in nichsi ager. Tuma nichsi ager that he died, and now everything is hefker. And he goes ahead and he makes and extends this mechitza. There's a fence, and he makes another fence on top of this fence. So really, you don't need that second fence. It's leikana. The second fence is not necessary. Now, vafilu nivla mechitza tachtena v'harei al yena kayemes. The first fence really fell into the ground. In other words, it sunk into the ground. So now, really, what the fence that's really fencing the area is the fence that he added. So the chura, now that he's the one that made the fence, so let him be kaina. So the answer is no. While he made that second fence, it wasn't doing anything. While it is doing something, is me'elu ba ma'isa. So therefore, it doesn't work. So in other words, it has to work though. You do a ma'isa to enhance the karka, and while you're doing it, it's enhancing it. But not you do a ma'isa, and later on, that what you did is goyrim that should be enhanced. Halacha yud beis amagzi b'nichsi ager ubehefker abavu ein daiter liknes. Person makes a chazaka, but he doesn't have das liknes. He does a ma'isa chazaka, ain't daiter liknes. Afal pishabana v'gada. He did a lot of built and he made fences. Abalapel, if he didn't have das liknes, is leikana. Now ha'oider b'nichsi ager. A person is, let's say, he's plowing the nichsi ager, but uksaver shushalei. He doesn't realize that it's nichsi ager. So he's making. So in the case halacha yud beis, he knows it's nichsi ager, but he has no intention to be kaina. So without an intention to be kaina, he's not kaina. Over here, he's being oida b'nichsi ager, assuming that this karka is his. So again, he doesn't have in mind to be kaina. Fakert, he thinks it's his. So the din is oida b'nichsi ager uksaver shushalei leikana. However, other b'nichsi ger zeh uksaver shel ger acher. He's being oida in the chosim. He knows it's hefker, but he thinks it's hefker because it came from this ger. And lepel, it came from a different ger. Is hail v'neschav b'maisav heila liskis v'na hefker. Since sof kol sof he's intending on being zeichem not hefker, the fact that he doesn't know which ger this comes from, it doesn't make a difference. Halacha yudalet hoye mashkin yisrael biyad ger. A yid, there was a yid that owed a ger money, and lepel, he gave the ger a mashkin. So the ger had like a schus in this mashkin, in order to hold it for the chayv that the yid has for it. Now, if we'll assume that the mashkin mamish became the gers, it became mamish the gers. So now the ger died. So this mashkin which he owned now no longer is now hefker. Masha'enkin, if you'll say that the emes the ger didn't have a schus in the mashkin, it wasn't mamish his. It was just that his schus to collect from the mashkin, as long as this person owes him money. But the pill, as soon as he dies, the person doesn't owe him any money. So Memela, this mashkin is no longer, this mashkin really belongs to the original borrower. So l'chur has to be given back. That's the issue here. Allah yudalit. Hoye mashkin yisrael biyad hager. A yid gave a ger a mashkin. Ukshemes hager, and then the ger died. Is boy Yisrael acher v'here's a mashkin zeh. Another yid comes and he's machzor mashkin zeh. So the din is mitzin esim yodei. You take the mashkin out of this second yid that took it. Why? Shekiv and shemes hager. Once the ger dies, is batel shibud. His shibud on the original yid is batel. So memela, the mashkin belongs to the original yid. Now, if lepel, this mashkin would have belonged to the ger, if the din would have been that the mashkin really belongs to the ger, he has already a schus in it, so this din wouldn't apply because it was his. That's the chiddush. The chiddush of it, the mashkin doesn't really belong to the ger. The mashkin is only meshubit to the ger, to mon, for the chayv that the yid has. And therefore, so once the ger dies, so the yid doesn't owe the ger any more money, so memela, this mashkin is his, and there's no shibud on it. So memela, when this person comes along and he's yoichan it, he's not zoichan. Halacha tezvav. Now, hoye mashkin ager biyad Yisrael fakert. Not the mashkin Yisrael was biyad ger, the mashkin of the ger was biyad Yisrael. And lepel, the ger dies. Now a boy Yisrael acher v'hichzik bei. The ger dies, so now another yid comes along and he's machzik in this mashkin. So the din is lekeach menu harishin keneged ma'esav va'achrin kanes ashar. There's the money that the ger owed him, which he gave him the mashkin for. So the yid has a right to collect that money from that mashkin, and to take it away from the second yid which was zeich in the mashkin. Now we're talking about, let's say halacha tezayin b'medvar mamurim b'shaloi hoya mashkin b'chatzar harishin. The mashkin wasn't lying in the chatzar of the first malva, because avalim hoya b'chatzer is the chatzer kena shlei medaitik meisha biyana b'inyan metzia. In other words, if it's lying in his house, for example, as the chatzar hamishtameres, so maybe he was kena ve'en lezo achron klum. So what happened is that there's this a ger owed a yid money, so he gave the yid the mashkin. So the yid has now a mashkin that the ger owes him money. Now the ger dies. Now if the mashkin is lying in the yid's house, obviously the yid is kind of the mashkin. There's nothing to talk about because it's in his house. But if the mashkin is not lying in the yid's house, it's lying somewhere else. So the yid can't be kind of now the mashkin. Now the question is, but he has a shibur on the ger. The ger owed him money. And because the ger owed him money, so he had a right to collect from the mashkin. But now l'chura the ger died. Now once the ger died, l'chura the ger doesn't owe him any money. L'chura the ger doesn't owe him any money. So l'chura, so what rights does he have on this mashkin? His whole rights on the mashkin was because the ger owed him money. So the question is, now someone else comes along and is zoich in this mashkin. So he says, listen, the mashkin is the gers. The mashkin is the gers. You never really collected from this mashkin. He owed you money, so you had a right to collect it, but now he doesn't owe you any money. So l'chura, I want to take the mashkin. And the din is not like that. The din is that you could go ahead, the original malva, which had the mashkin, even though the mashkin was not in his possession when the ger died, could go and mon from this mashkin for what the ger owed him. So the question is why. That's the question is the havana of why. So in other words, there's like a shibud. He has a shibud on this. Since he had the mashkin, so therefore he has a shibud. There was like a shibud on the chayiv that the ger had b'chayav, that he could collect from this mashkin, even though the ger is no longer alive. So even though normally metaltal the yasmi is not meshubed l'bal chayiv midina gemara, midrabanan that says the takonas hagainim was you could collect from the metaltal the yasmi, but midina the gemara you cannot collect from metaltal the yasmi. But that's only because metaltal the yasmi there's yisaimim. They own it. They yarshin it. Mashengan over here, there was no one that yarshin this mashkin. This mashkin fell into hefker, so to speak. So then the din is that's a rajba that says that since there was no one that yarshin the mashkin, so therefore the shibud that the original malva had on the mashkin is still there. The original shibud that the malva had on the mashkin is still there, and therefore he could collect from the mashkin mihilchas shibud. Or since the ger owed him money, he had a shibud on the mashkin, so that shibud is still there. And therefore, even if someone else came along and had a right to be koine, he had a right to be koine, but he still has his shibud on the mashkin, and therefore he could take it away from the mashkin. It's not such an easy concept, but that's the nekud of the din. Halacha yud zayin ger shemes ubizbezu yisrael es nechosov and lepeils because this all hefker v'hoyebem avodim gdelim. So the din is kanawatzim necherim. Since they're avodim gdelim, they're right to be kaina themselves, and they're hefker. So mele they're etzim mitzias, they're kaina themselves. Aval avodim aktanim, but the avodim ktanim is arein kibehema like the behema v'chol amaz lebem zachabem. Kvar biyarnu dar ki achazak sheyiknim them savodim. What do you do in order to be kaina avodim? So you can be kaina the avodim ktanim with chazak. Halacha yudches ger shemes ubizbezu yisrael es nechosov. And then, after they were bizbezu Yisrael's nechasav, v'shamu shadayin leimes. They heard that he were not really mes. Oy sheyesh ben sheishtemu beres. So lepel they didn't have a right to take it. So the din is kulam chayav malhaza. They have to all return the money because lepel there's a yoirish or he didn't die. Now hirziru kulam they all returned the money and v'acharkach shamu shemes. Then they realized that which means that shishmur rishena emes or yobri rishena emes that he be'emes died originally. The pale they once made a Maisa Kinyan, and then they already returned it, and then they realized that really they didn't have to return it, and the Maisa Kinyan was a proper Maisa Kinyan. Oy, Meis B'nai Mikedema, he Pili Ishte knows there was a mistake when they heard that they didn't have a right to make a Maisa Kinyan, and really they did have a right to make a Maisa Kinyan. And they realized now that they did have a right to make a Maisa Kinyan. So the din is, even though each one can tell, listen, I was machzik before, And lepel, when I returned it, it was a mistake. So Mamela, let me be mavatal the returning it and reinstate the original kinyan. So we say no. Kol marzik b'shniya kona. The person that's marzik the second time, after, knows now that we realize it was a mistake, so now again it's hefker, so then it's kena. Because since they heard it was a mistake, so they were miyayish from it already. So since they gave it back and they were miyayish, even though it was taka be'emes a mistake, but lepel, since they were miyayish, so mele it became hefker, and once it becomes hefker, so now whoever's kena b'shniya, he's the one that's be'emes kena. It's also, besides the fact that he's miyayish, the ikka point is that lechatchila the kinyan wasn't really, it was just a smichas das. Because lepel, he wasn't really 100% sure that he died, whereas obviously later on they said he didn't die. So notice they never really knew for sure that he died. They never knew for sure that he didn't have a child. So mele, the kinyan was melchatchila not such like a strong kinyan. So mele, when they, so to speak, give up the kinyan and they give it back, so mele, that's mevatel the kinyan. So now whoever's Zchiah b'shniya, he's the one that's bemis his.